everybody, welcome to Garden Time with Belle. Today I have been waiting for patiently, and that is the time for me to get out here and finally harvest my garlic. I have done a lot of research on garlic. I have read a lot. I've asked my gardening friends a lot about how to grow garlic because this is my first year ever doing that. And so I think I have come up with about 5 of the most common tips that I've read about that I want to share with you all and that I'm going to try to use in my first time harvesting garlic. The very first thing you need to decide is when to harvest. You know, these cloves have been in the garden since last October. I'm coming to you from mid-Missouri. I'm a zone 6AB, and so I planted out the cloves many months ago. And generally speaking, for my area, they're typically ready to pull in June and early July. So here we are almost, I guess, the 3rd week of June, and it's not so much about the date, right? It's about us reading the plants, trying to decide, what are they telling us when it's ready? And so what I have discovered through lots of research is most garlic growers recommend you wait until the about half of the stalk turns brown, the leaves. And I'll show you that because we're going to get in here in just a minute. And I'll show you a close-up of what I'm talking about. And my garlic's turning dry, and so a lot of the green has gone away and a lot of the brown has come. So I think it's time. We're going to try it and see what happens. The other recommendation that I did not follow, so we'll see what results are, but a lot of garlic growers recommend that you cut off water to your garlic beds about 2 to 3 weeks before harvest. And in doing so, the idea is you really dry that bulb out so that when you go to actually cure it or really dry it out, it's sort of got a head start and there won't be any mold or, weird things with a big soppy wet bulb. So the reason why I didn't do that is because I planted garlic on the edges of the beds that I have tomatoes and peppers in this year. And so lesson learned, I'm going to next year devote just one entire raised bed just to garlic so that I can, I have drip irrigation. So then I could just turn that drip off to that one bed for 2 to 3 weeks prior. But I would say my attempt, those beds that the garlic's in right now, I probably have not watered those beds for about 4 days. Third step is to gently pull them out of the ground. I'm going to use my big trowel here, and so I'll show you how to do that. Gently pull them out of the ground, gently shake off some of the dirt, don't rinse them. So that's really important. And then the 4th step is you need to lay your freshly harvested garlic bulbs with all the green stems on a drying rack, and they need to dry for about 2 to 3 weeks before you store them. And I'll show you the little setup that my husband created for me in my garage, in our garage, where I'm gonna dry out that garlic for the next 3 weeks. And then lastly, once that garlic is nice and bone dry after being dried out, then you can store it long term. And so today, of course, I won't show you how I'm going to do that, but I'll bring you back when it's time, 2 or 3 weeks from now, when it's time for me to cut off the root end and cut off the green end when it should be really dry, and how and where I'm going to store that garlic in my basement. So I think pretty simple job. I don't know what I'm going to discover. I haven't pulled any bulbs yet, so you'll be coming along with me for this first attempt at harvesting garlic. So time to get into my raised bed garden and get this job underway. Here, where I have garlic growing on this side, and come around here, show you. I've got it growing on this side as well. There it is, right on the edges. And if I come over here, down in this raised bed, I have another line of garlic. So I think all together, I planted about 50 cloves, I think is what I counted, 40 or 50. So I want to show you all what I was talking about in terms of figuring out when is it ready to harvest. And so you can see on this one, you can see if we start way down here at the base, you see how dried up and crusty that is? and several of the leaves have dried. And so the recommendations I've read about said, you know, when it gets up about halfway up the stalk and the leaves start drying out, it is time to harvest. So that is what we're going to do. And it's going to be nice to get these harvested out of here because then I'll have access to my tomatoes. But as I mentioned earlier, because I couldn't cut off the water entirely for 2 or 3 weeks, because I've got to keep all this other beautiful stuff growing, next season, and of course I always swap crops, I rotate things around. Next season, I'm going to, I think, devote either this bed or that bed down there just to garlic. And that way, at each individual bed, you know, I have drip irrigation. And if I can get in here, get this little marigold out of the way, you'll be able to see right here, I can control on off for these beds. And so that way next year I can turn off the irrigation to the garlic bed for 2 to 3 weeks to help them dry out even more. So, okay, here we go. You'll be as surprised as I am because I haven't unveiled the garlic yet. And so what I've done is just pushed away the straw mulch. You all know I love to use straw as my mulch in my vegetables. So they say go in with your trowel or spade or pitchfork or whatever, and kind of keep it not right up against the bulb. And let's see if I move some soil away. Ooh, that's looking good. Let's see what we've got. Oh my goodness. My first head of garlic. Wow, wow, wow. That is quite an achievement for this newbie at garlic growing. So golly, if they all look this great, let me see if I put my hand here. And it doesn't feel too moist. The soil isn't wet, so that's a good thing. So yeah, so I've got about 40 more of these to dig up. So I'll set the camera up and let you see that process. And what I'll be doing is I'm going to take each one of these and lay them in my trusty sled. And then I will haul my sled up to the garage and show you where I'm going to cure them for the next 2 or 3 weeks to dry them out even further. That was such an easy task. Actually, I switched, as you probably saw, from my hand trowel of digging to a spade because that was so much easier. I could just get that in there and lift them up and then just pull them by hand. And so I've got a sled full, which means I've got to haul this sled up to the garage, and then I'll show you all where I'm going to let them cure for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I've made it up to the garage, and next step would be to put my newly harvested garlic on a drying rack. So what I'm reading, all the main advice is that you want to let your newly harvested garlic cure for 2 to 3 weeks. It needs to be in a well ventilated spot. It needs to be out of the sun, but a warm spot. So, I've got that amazing greenhouse, but I was a little too afraid that would be too hot. In fact, my greenhouse, it's really hot and humid here right now. So my greenhouse gets really hot, even though I've got exhaust fans going and all of that in it. So and I was afraid I couldn't shade it properly. So we came up with this idea. My husband, who was a former home remodeler and can build anything, said, "Oh, I'll build you a little drying rack out of some chicken wire and some old scrap lumber." So that's what he did. But any way that you can just elevate that garlic off the surface so that there's airflow all around it will help it dry out and cure faster. And you want to make sure you're running a fan. And so I've got an oscillating fan, just a regular old fan from the house, that I'm going to have up here on this garlic for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So all I need to do is lay out the garlic. So I'll show you that process, and I'm going to try to count how many I ended up with, which it smells amazing already in the garage. Super excited. So I'm going to count them, and then I'll show you my biggest and the littlest from this first time garlic growers harvest. Okay, so check this out. I am so proud of my first attempt at growing garlic. Now I see how easy it is. Hopefully, I'll do the right thing by curing them properly. But I ended up with 45 heads of garlic, which is amazing. And I wanted to just show you my biggest and my littlest. So this is the biggest bulb, but actually I had many heads of garlic this big, and I don't know what happened to this little baby one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it was so little. This is the only tiny one, but the majority were this size and maybe a size down. I had a lot in about this range. I don't know if you can see the difference. So anyhow, one thing I did not share with you is there are two types of garlic you can grow: hardneck and softneck. I ordered hardneck, the hardneck variety, the German hardneck, from a place out of St. Louis. And hardnecks are supposed to develop what they call or scapes. They're like, they send up a little flower shoot 2 or 3 weeks before harvest, and none of these set up garlic scapes. So I don't know if I got softneck or hardneck, but regardless, I'm going to love eating this garlic and using it in my cooking. So I'll let you know. I really feel like I ended up getting softneck variety, but anyways, doesn't matter. I am still so excited about how things went with this particular garden adventure. So I'll keep you posted on how they are curing. They're going to sit here, as I mentioned, for 2 or 3 more weeks with this fan. I'll have the oscillating fan on it to help dry them out. And then once they're fully cured and really dried up for storage, I'll be moving them to my downstairs pantry in the basement, because for storage, it's recommended cool and dark. And that's the place that I'm thinking I'm going to be able to store them. On average, I've read in my research about garlic, I've read 4 months to 12 months they'll store for. So, it really depends on so many different variables. But gosh, that would be amazing if I could have fresh garlic in my cellar that I can use in my cooking for months and months to come. And then, of course, come this October, which, let's see, it's June, July, August, September. So 4 months from now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to save the biggest, best bulbs, and I'm going to replant. I'm going to pull them apart. I'll bring you along for that adventure, and I'll never have to buy garlic again. I'll replant the best cloves And we'll be getting to do this all over again next year. So fun. Those of you out there who have experienced growing garlic, please leave your comments, suggestions, and tips for what you've experienced in growing garlic. And I would sure love to learn from everybody out there watching. And of course, if you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking and subscribing so that I can grow my channel, so that I can do more fun projects like this and bring them to other people and share with my gardening friends out there. So I would say, without a doubt, harvesting my first batch of garlic was a happy gardening day.